Hysteresis. You probably never heard this word before, or maybe if you use Reaper, you might have seen it in the gate plugin and tried to move the slider and didn't really know what it's doing. So in this video, I'm going to explain what it is, demonstrate how it works visually so you can see what's actually happening. Here in Reaper, I have a track and I'm generating pink noise on it, and I also have the reagate on it. And if you look down here, there's a slider called Hysteresis. If you don't use that, by default, let's say I have the threshold right here and the gate is open. Now I turn down the signal and the gate closes. There's still signal right here, but the gate is closed. The signal is not passing because it's below the threshold. So then the signal gets stronger, the gate opens, great. Now I'll move down the hysteresis slider and I'll turn down the signal and I still have signal. The gate is not closed. However, if I turn off the signal and turn it on again, the gate is closed. But if I turn up the signal, the gate opens. And if I turn it down again, the gate is still open. So what's happening? I'm going to use a different plugin now so you can see what's happening. This is the gate from LSP. If you're using Windows or Mac, unfortunately, you don't have access to these plugins because LSP stands for Linux Studio Plugins. But these developers make really good visual plugins. This gate looks a little bit like the mixer gate. You have this shape and you can see the signal going up and above threshold. Right here, this point is the signal that is above the threshold. Anyway, this also has hysteresis, so let's look at it. Threshold is what you already know, how strong the signal should be to open the gate. Hysteresis, if I turn it on, you can see right here, that's another threshold, and I can turn it up and down. So right now, if I grab my signal and turn it down, you can see the point right here. It is below the threshold, but it's still above the hysteresis threshold. So that's why I still have signal. But if I turn off my signal, turn it on again, the gate is closed because the signal should go above the initial threshold, not the hysteresis. I'm going to turn it up again. It's above threshold. The gate is open. Turn it down. It's below threshold, but above the hysteresis threshold, so it's still open. In other words, if I set the hysteresis to -5, I'm telling the gate, even if the signal drops 5 dB below the threshold, stay open. If it drops more than 5 dB below threshold, then close. Otherwise, if I'm not using hysteresis, as soon as the signal drops ever so slightly below the threshold, the gate closes. Okay, so in real life, what's the use case? If you have some signal that is fluttering around the threshold, sometimes it's louder, sometimes it's quieter, your signal is too dynamic, and your gate is opening and closing randomly. You can see right here, it's very messy. Hysteresis gives you some room. So if I set it to, let's say, just -3 dB, for example, I'm telling the gate, hey, even if the signal drops 3 dB below threshold, stay open. If it drops more than that, then I'm sure that I don't want that signal anymore, close the gate. Now, if I go back to the reagate plugin, here you can actually push the hysteresis in a positive value. So it could be higher than the threshold, which doesn't make sense. You will not ever use this because you're telling it, open the gate at -20 dB, but close it at -15, which is higher. Doesn't make sense. It sounds very choppy. There is no real use case for music or live sound. So hysteresis is a relative value that is relative to the threshold. If I set it to -5, this means that whatever value I have on the threshold, the hysteresis threshold will be 5 dB below it. So if my gate needs the signal to be at -15 dB to open, the hysteresis of -5 will keep it open even if the signal goes down to -20. If it goes below that, then it will close. That would be really useful with speaking mics, especially with elderly people or just people who don't really know how to speak into a microphone. Because right now they might be really shouting and speaking into the microphone, and then they turn away and they start speaking very quietly. And if you have this gate for a live stream mix, now you're cutting off their words, but if you set the threshold too low, then you're picking up all the noise. So this way you are telling the gate, even if the signal gets slightly weaker, stay open, don't close immediately. Now you might be asking, what's the difference between using this and just making the release time longer or the hold time longer? Isn't that the same thing? Aren't you keeping the gate open for longer? Yes and no. Both are keeping the gate open for longer, but one is in terms of time, the other is in terms of signal strength. And you can use both combined. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Another use case would be drums. For your snare drum, for example, you can have still a really short release time, and that usually results in a shorter sound without sustain because you're not letting in the tail. But if you drop the hysteresis a few dB, then you're still letting in the tail of the sound without making the release time long. So it still feels tight, but you're not cutting off the sustain. I'm not saying you'll use this all the time, but when you need it, you will know in the back of your head that there is an option, there is a solution to the problem that you're having. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit the like button, click on the video on the screen right now, and I'll see you there.